On today's show, we're going to change it up a little bit. As you know, we usually bring CEOs of publicly traded companies on the show every day, day out. But today, I found a great person that's going to encompass some of the things that some of these CEOs are not doing and they should be doing. And joining us today is the LinkedIn expert and author, international speaker, Forbes top 20 most influential personnel branding expert, Miss Viveka von Rosen. Viveka, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, when I think about influencers, you know, I think about stars. I think people that are up there at the top of the hemisphere. One, what is an influencer and how does one become one?
Great question. You know, in the past, we thought of influencers as book authors or professors or CEOs. But nowadays, with Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, an influencer is really anyone who can get somebody, an audience to listen to them, which we shouldn't discount the idea of influencers because, you know, maybe you don't have a book, maybe you don't have a PhD. But as a business leader, if you've got an audience that's willing to listen to you, you really can position yourself as a thought leader, expert, and an influencer on whatever social medium you prefer.
There's somebody listening to the show, whether it be somebody just starting a business, CEO of a company. What are some of the better platforms? Maybe you could give them some advice to go on, or how do you even get started?
Yeah, it really depends on where your audience is. So as a business leader, LinkedIn, obviously. So you definitely want a profile on LinkedIn, but not only that, you want to make sure that your profile is more of a resource than a resume. Most business leaders, threw their resume up in 2005, 6, or 7, and they haven't looked at it since. But you really want to make your profile a resource for your audience. That's number one. And then you have to be active on LinkedIn because how can you have a following if you're not, quote, speaking or sharing? And so you have to get active on LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of any kind of video on LinkedIn, whether it's native video or they actually have a live stream opportunity now called LinkedIn Live. So anything like that where you can get out there, you can start sharing content will help, again, to build your influence and your visibility on LinkedIn.
Well, I asked you to come on the show because I'm very impressed with what you've done in the past and some of the things that we talked about off the air. That being said, let's get down to the bolts and the nuts.
Sure.
What steps can an individual or a company take to create a strong brand for themselves?
Perfect. So the first thing is kind of above the fold. So you've got this opportunity for branding with your background image. And a lot of people won't have one, or maybe they just have a landscape on there, but you really have an opportunity to pull the brand from your website and then rework it to work on LinkedIn. So like you have, right? You've got your podcast, you've got your mic, and providing transparency to investors. That's perfect. It's clean, it's simple, it's in your brand's colors and fonts. It speaks to your USP and your, kind of your mission statement, providing transparency to investors. Boom, done. So something like that as a background image is really powerful. You need to have your image up there. Now, I would recommend smiling, but it needs to look like you so that when people do meet you for the first time, or if you decide that you want to do LinkedIn Live or native video, there's not a disconnect between your image on LinkedIn and then what people actually see when they see you, quote, live for the first time. You also have an opportunity in that above the fold to tell people not only who you are, but more importantly, who you help and how you help them. So do you help B2B brands create more visibility through podcasting? Great. Put that down, right? If you help small business and strategic investors create more confidence by branding. So you want to put that focus on who your buyers are and then how you serve them. And if there's room, you can put your title in your company, that's fine. But you always want it to be buyer focused. And then the other thing that you want to do is expand upon that in the about section. So most people grab the first section of their resume and pop it in there, but this is your sales page. This is your opportunity to really dial down on how you help people, who you've helped, what kind of results that they can expect to see, other people that you might have worked with, provided it's compliant. In the financial industry, I get that there's a lot of compliance issues, so right. But you can certainly talk about who you help and how you help them, and maybe some more generic results if you can't talk about individuals that you've worked with. And then if you've got any media that can support that, podcasts, blogs, articles, quotes, whatever it is, testimonials, again, be very careful with compliance issues, but you can upload that into the media section as well. And those are all above the fold. And if you just do those things, you'll create a stronger brand on LinkedIn, which you absolutely need. You won't find any influencers on LinkedIn who don't have also a strong brand or whatever, platform they're on.
Should they separate their personal from their business, or can they run it congruent?
Well, it's your personal within your business. So if you've got two business, like you've got your business and your podcast, right? You've got stockdaymedia and you've got the podcast. So, two arms, one body. So you can easily blend those together. If you've got two very disparate things, then you might want to create company page. Well, you want to create a company page anyway. And then your company page can be focused entirely on your company, but you can spend the time in your headline and your about section or your summary section still talking about who you help and how you help them. You just might pull in the different offers that you have.
You have tens of thousands of followers. And so one of my questions that I wanted to ask you is, what are the three main mistakes that you see branding a product or themselves that people make coming out of the gate?
Yeah. So the first one is having a barely there profile. I always say there's three profiles on LinkedIn. There's the ones that'll cost you business, the neutral ones, and the ones that will help you build your business. And so not having a profile or having a barely there profile can actually negatively affect your business. But the good news is truly you can build a pretty decent profile in a couple of hours. That's a big mistake that people make, because when they Google you, either your company or your name, your LinkedIn profile is going to show up on the first page. And so when people then click through to learn more about you, which 62% of buyers will always research the vendor or their seller before they buy from them. And if they're doing it on Google. And if they're doing it on Google, your LinkedIn profile is showing up. So they are seeing your LinkedIn profile, and that is not good if it's not good. So one of the things is, have a brand out there.
Got it.
The second mistake I see is when people create profiles, they just use their resumes. But like I said, you want this to be buyer focused and a resource. Otherwise, it's just your resume. And I hate to say it, but no one really cares about you. They care about how you can help them. And so that's really what you want to focus on, is what's in it for them, what makes you different from everybody else out there. Why should they go with your company instead of, your competitor's company? And then to reinforce that, the third mistake that people make is not sharing content to further help position them as thought leaders, as experts, as influencers. And the nice thing about sharing content, you don't have to create blog articles. You can create or share content from your own company. If your own company is producing blogs, great, share those. But you can also be a curator of other people's content, as long as it's not your competitors. And so you can curate other people's content. And basically, you just want to say, here's a great article. This is why it's great. This is why you should read it. Add a few hashtags, and then the link to the article or the image or the PDF or whatever it is that you're sharing. And even if you just do that once a day, it will exponentially increase the views on your profile, and it will help to align you with that leadership positioning. Now, if you want to be a true influencer, while you don't have to write a book or get your PhD, you still should be creating unique content. But that can take the form of video. That can take the form of a blog post. That can take the form of a white paper. That can take the form of any media, really, that you want to share that's original to you. Even if your company doesn't have a blog, LinkedIn has something called articles, which granted, are not getting the kind of visibility they used to, but it's a place where you could write a blog or an article. You could upload it into LinkedIn articles or LinkedIn Publisher. And now you've got something else to share that positions you as an expert, or you can hire someone to do it for you. So there's a lot of opportunity for that positioning. So those are the three things. Have a profile, make sure it's focused on your buyer, and make sure that you're sharing content every day to help position and align you as an expert.
I want to get to my final question. This is the one I've been kind of waiting for all day. How can, and I was thinking about this last week.
Yeah.
How can you connect with a media person, whether it be a columnist or a podcast or even a TV host, and get more visibility, credibility, and influence on LinkedIn? That seems to be in the position that I'm in. I've been around for a little while, and how do I get to that next step?
Exactly. Well, first of all, create content that, is aligned with that media person. So if they're a blogger, have a blog. If they're a podcaster, have a podcast. But that being said, the cool thing about LinkedIn is you can find just about anybody on it. And if you're closely enough connected to them, you can always ask for an introduction. And I always recommend getting the introduction if at all possible. So you can, if you go right to their profile, like Everett, well, you and I are connected, but if I were to go, before I accepted your invitation, if I went to your profile and I wanted to connect with you, right underneath where it has your name, there's something called highlights, and it'll actually show me our mutual connections. And the cool thing about that is we've got 23 mutual connections. And so I'll just look at all of our mutual connections and go, okay, well, I don't really know Chris or Steve. I do know Catherine and Jesse and Greg and Nia. And then I would ask those four.
Right.
First, two steps. I'd ask those four, first of all, are they willing to introduce me, yes or no? If they are, then I would actually write them a script and say, please feel free to customize this as you want, but I wanted to take the work out of it for you. And please CC me when you either, introduce me through messages, or if you send an email, just CC me on that. So the introduction is always going to be the best way to connect with someone on LinkedIn. Having said that, if you don't have anyone in common, if they're a media person, chances are they've shared content. Start engaging on their content. That will build that top of mind awareness after a week or two of, don't look like a stalker, but after, once or twice engaging on their content, asking thoughtful, not just a like, but actually reading through the content, responding to it thoughtfully, maybe adding an image, maybe adding a link. But after doing that once or twice, you'll build that top of mind awareness with them, and then invite them to connect and go for the meeting if you can.
Viveka, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. You really enlightened myself, and hopefully you enlighten my listeners about building a brand and everything. Hopefully you'll come on the show maybe 3-4 months from now and give us some more updates and some little nuances of how we can do better.
Perfect. Let's do it.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by La Jolla Media LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are for educational and research purposes. Stock Day encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional.